Welcome to Fight Court, y'all. We are back with another episode. I'm Dean Thomas. That's Ryan Quinn. And today joining us all the way from London, I was kicking it with him in London. My man has his own extensive career that we will get into. But first, well, let me introduce him. Jonavin Webb is joining the show. Give him a round of applause.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
And you guys are busy.
So, Jonavin,
froze. You're good now. You froze for a second.
I froze for a second.
Yeah.
Jonavin, I got to ask you, man, this win with Sean Brady in London, man, that was bigger than the Super Bowl, huh?
Man, it was. I've known Sean since he was 19 years old, right? People don't kind of know our background, but, me and Paul Felder were one of the earlier guys in the Philly area trying to make it to the UFC and then eventually making it to the UFC. And Sean was like our little brother. Like, he was in the gym. He was the kid that, he was tough, but we just had the experience on him. And he was just like our little training partner. And, one day he started beating us up and we're like, man, what the hell is going on? And then now he's beating up the best guys in the world. And, I just love that I get to be a part of it with him.
What do you attribute that growth to? Do you talk about like one day he's y'all's little guy, next thing you know, he's beating y'all up. Now he's beating up. Like, what do you attribute that growth to?
So the funny thing is, right before I logged on here, I was teaching my class, a no-gi jiu-jitsu class, and I was kind of telling them what I'm about to tell you. And it's, Sean didn't come in with any crazy background or attributes or anything like that. He never wrestled a day in his life, which, people just still can't believe it because I think he's the best wrestler in the welterweight division, maybe in the entire UFC. And, he was always strong, but he wasn't what he is now. Right. And he was never like the most athletic person. Wasn't the fastest person. There's nothing crazy that he had. He wasn't obviously the tallest person, as Leon Edwards would say. But like, he didn't have any of that stuff. But what he had was just grit and determination. And my man showed up every day that other people didn't want to show up. And he just put the work in. And now it's showing. Right. I really think that it all comes down to just the work that he put in, and the days that, all of us were fine going, 5 days a week, 6 days a week hard. And then we want to have our rest and all that stuff. Sean Brady does not take rest days. I can guarantee that he went home, got home on Monday and was working out in his garage while he's holding his brand new baby. I can bet all the money I have in my bank account that's what he was doing on Monday.
That's awesome. You answer. I just had two questions coming up, but you actually kind of answered one of them. The fact that he kept showing up. I feel like a lot of MMA fighters, they don't understand how important that is. It makes me think of the movie Training Day when he talks about the story with the snail. I know you guys are around my age, so you probably have seen that. Just keep showing up. But let's talk about, okay, that's how you knew that he was going to succeed. Let's talk about the difference between him now versus Bilal Muhammad. Now, one thing that I noticed in this fight that he did better than he's done in every other fight I've seen is not even necessarily his boxing to his wrestling, his boxing to his level changes, boxing to takedowns, boxing to clinch work. That's what I've seen as a viewer. But what was something that you noticed between now and then that it's like just something switched, like he cleaned it up?
Number one thing is he believes in himself. He's not someone to make excuses, and we have 100 things that went wrong on the fight week with Bilal, but that's in the past, and we're past that. But the main thing is that he truly believes in himself. In the back, Dean was there; he saw it as well. But all those fights kept going to decisions, so we were warmed up pretty early going into the fight. And, I started getting a little nervous because he stopped warming up. And, I'm like, maybe he's cold or maybe he's getting nervous. And I'm just sitting there like, hey, Sean, you want to warm up a little more? You want to do this? And he looks over to me and was like, I'm going to warm up on his face. And the way he said it, I just looked at him like, all right, you got that. And I just felt this confidence. I don't know if it was that
No,
Leon was just pissing him off little by little all week or whatever it was, but he was so locked in and just ready to kill. I don't care who was out there that night. He was gonna put him to sleep.
it's funny you bring that story up because I told that story today about
Yeah,
how he was like, and I couldn't remember exactly what he said. I thought he said, "I'm about to beat shit out of Leon. Don't worry about
yeah,
it." That's what I thought he said. But I think I do. You're right. He did say, "I'm gonna warm up on his face." But
yeah,
I told that story today on Sirius XM because like at that moment, that's when you knew that this fight was over. Like when he's
yeah,
like he's just sitting there and he goes and he said like he looked at us and he said that and we all were like, all right,
yeah.
all right, let's just all
You
right, we're
believed him,
ready.
right? Yeah, he didn't
Yeah.
say it, just to say it. He meant every word of that.
Yeah.
So
I
what do
mean,
you mean by warm up on his face? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
No. Um, I like that you brought up that he doesn't have a wrestling background, but he has fantastic wrestling, which can happen if you train properly in MMA. This is something that we talk about all the time. Just how do you channel it? What do you attribute that for his solid wrestling, even though he doesn't have a wrestling background? Did he just pick
man.
up wrestling on MMA, or is he just mix it up well in MMA stance?
Yeah, I mean, he just man, it's so wild. Like when I really try to go back and think, like, so when we built this team, we had a different coach back then, but we all came from different gyms, right? So like Sean was still an amateur. I had a couple pro fights. Felder had a couple pro fights, and there was a bunch of other guys on the team as well. But like Felder came in as the striking guy, right?
Hmm.
I came in as like the wrestler slash jiu-jitsu guy, and then Sean was just this young kid who started at an MMA gym. Like me and Paul didn't start that way. Paul started from karate and Muay eventually getting into Muay Thai and then getting into MMA. And again, I started with the wrestling and then going into jiu-jitsu and then going into MMA. Sean is like that new era of kids who start in MMA gyms and they're so well rounded everywhere. And, like, yes, wrestling is like his strongest thing, but I mean, his jiu-jitsu submissions are just as good as wrestling. And I know in fights it hasn't shown, but again, Dean can attest in the room. Sean beats up some of the best strikers you'll ever see in the room, and now it's going to finally starting to show in fights. Like I think if that fight would have kept standing, he was eventually going to drop Leon with those punches as well. So I don't think it's just the wrestling. I think everywhere he's so well rounded because he is that new generation of just full on MMA fighters, not specialists in anything. He's a complete full MMA fighter.
who would you like to see him fight next?
I mean, we would all love for that Bilal fight to happen. But obviously Bilal has a fight lined up already. If someone falls out of that fight, we would love to see him, fight Bilal or Jack. Those are two people that we've gotten ready for in the past. And I think either one he'll be able to dominate at this point. If those don't happen, just on like a legacy term, I would love to see Kamaru Usman. Kind of messed up because it's like you know, a wounded animal he'll be going after at this point. But Kamaru is honestly one of my favorite champions ever, and I'm sure Sean feels the same exact way. And it's just another feather in his cap that we would add to his legacy. All this like I got nothing against Buckley, but like that fight just doesn't make sense at this point. Like, what does that do for Sean? Seeing an Usman fight, even a Colby fight. Even though Colby dropped down in the rankings, like those are something that I feel like when he goes back and tells his daughter, hey, 10 years ago I fought, these ex champions. I just think that's just better for his legacy. Um, if none of those happen, I mean, we'll take on Shavkat. I think Shavkat doesn't have, the accolades that the rest of these guys have, but he's this guy that's like the boogeyman right now. And I think Sean can just kill that hype train.
Well, I'll tell you right now, Kobe ain't taking that fight.
No, I know.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we know that. But
Yeah.
but Jonavin, I ain't gonna disrespect you like this. I didn't bring you on here just to talk about Sean because you had
Yeah.
your own career, and I want people to kind of get an idea of like what your career consisted of and what you're doing now. So, and I know you had your own fight career. You fought in the UFC. What is the most
Yeah.
memorable moment you had in your fight career?
Most memorable. I mean, there was nights where there would literally be, me and Sean and Felder, and there'd be times where there'd be 6 or 7 of our guys on one card, and we're the entire main cards. We're all selling tickets and fighting for championships and all that stuff. And just doing that with your brothers was better than any UFC fight or any, other title fights I've ever had. I truly believe that that's like when I go back and think about my career, those nights that we all celebrated, going 6-0 as a team, and we're all at the after parties, hanging out. Like that's what I remember the most of my fight career. My UFC career didn't go the way that I planned it on going. Again, I'm not making excuses or anything like that, but I was the coach and the athlete at the same time. And then one day I had to just make a decision of, you know, am I going to keep doing this half-ass, or am I just going to go 100% in one of the things? And I just really love coaching. Like some people don't get the same thrill as they did when they fight. When I walked through that O2 arena tunnel, it felt like I was fighting that night. I even felt like I had to like shake out a little bit, maybe throw a couple punches in the air, because I still get that feeling. And watching one of my best friends just go out there and dominate someone like that was like a true win for me. And again, it just kind of solidifies that coaching was my path, and it was where I was supposed to go. And I had to cut my own career short so that I can really, take these guys where I really believe they can go.
Man, I love that because I coached and fought too, and I get that. And when I set up goals for myself as a coach, like I don't know why I set these goals up for myself. I remember it was in January of 2019, and then COVID hit, and I wasn't coaching after COVID, but I wanted a 3-0 night, a 4-0 night. I wanted to win 10 in a row, and I wanted 3 champions. I was an amateur coach, so it was a little
Yeah.
easier to rack up fights. And then I realized, man, I really like coaching after that. Like, when did you realize, like, so you kind of, and it happens a lot in mixed martial arts, you kind of just fall into the coaching thing, whether you're helping
Yeah.
out one of your teammates, something like that. But when did you realize that coaching was it? Coaching was next. And you
So
actually have a passion for coaching outside of just competing.
So honestly, it started really early for me. So my original jiu-jitsu coach, his name's Brian McPherson. He was a New Jersey State Police officer, and he was really highly ranked in the state police here. And he opened the gym. I was a part of his gym the first week it was open. I think I was either the first person to sign up or one of the first people to sign up. And I was also the only one who came in with a background of wrestling, and then I started competing right away. So to kind of get to my point, he would have his work phone by the mat, and sometimes that phone would go off, and there's some kind of government detail or something that he would have to just leave the gym immediately. And I got my blue belt in like 6 months, I believe, and I was teaching at like 6 months. So as soon as he would get called, he would be like, "Hey, John, can you finish teaching the class?" And again, it was basic people and all that. And I would just jump in and cover. And I was only 17 or 18 years old at the time, and that was like my first like taste of coaching jiu-jitsu. And then when our team got together in Philly years ago, before John Marquez was a part of it, our ex-coach, who I'm not gonna throw any names out there, but you know he ended up I was 8-0 in the UFC. I'm sorry, I was 8-0 as a pro fighter. Felder was 9-0 as a pro fighter, fought his UFC debut in Canada, and Sean was like when I was 8-0, Sean was probably like 2-0 or, something like that as a pro. He ended up just leaving Philadelphia and it was just on us. Like we literally had to just figure out how to run practices, and Felder and Brady it just wasn't in them at the time to run a class. And I just kind of jumped in and I just started running it. I literally would be in my training gear telling everyone what to do, and then go out and do the drills that I'm telling them to do, and then getting in the sparring with them, and I don't even get to watch them spar. I'm literally sparring them, and that just kind of was happening, and I was fighting, and I was still winning, but it was just something that wasn't there. And then when I took a loss, I just remember sitting there like, I feel like my ego is not that crazy for being an MMA fighter. And there was just something in me that said, it's okay to lose, but losing because I'm not giving 100% just didn't feel right to me. And then when 2 losses happened after the UFC, I was like, man, this is it. I'm not going to do it if I can't go 100%. And then that's when I just went 100% into coaching. And, I opened up my own gym, and then I still go over to Philly and help the guys, a few times a week. I don't get to see Sean, 6 days a week like I used to before. I only get to go over there 3 days a week because I run my own gym here in New Jersey. And, but I just try to give as much time as I can to the MMA fighters. And at the same time, I try to give my own students the same amount of time I give them.
Absolutely. Well, I heard you say that, your UFC career didn't go the way you wanted it. You were there, which is an
Yeah.
accomplishment in itself. And with the way everything's going, it seems like you're doing it all right. So keep it up, coach.
Thank you. Now it's 8 o'clock over by me, and I got a flight at 6 a.m. to get to Mexico for Joe Piper, and we're gonna try to keep this momentum going, because the next weekend after that we have Pat Sabatini in Vegas. So we're gonna try to keep this ball rolling and show them
Circus
that
travels.
Philly and South Jersey are on the map for MMA right now.
Keep it up.
Well, I'll
Thank
see
you.
you in Mexico, my man.
Yeah, I'll see you there. We'll get some we'll crack some more jokes, and everybody will get the fat jokes on me and John, but we'll just keep getting these wins.
No doubt. Jonavin, man, we appreciate you coming on the show today, man. Get some sleep, and I'll see you in Mexico.
All right, see you there, brother.
All right, my man.
Have a good one.
Man, that's a great story. That made me realize I was coaching and training the last like 8 years of my career. 8 years of my career. I was coaching and training.
Dude, my whole career was that way.
Yeah, I didn't know anything else. I was working
Yeah.
too for most of it, except for the last year and a half.
For me, I actually learned to appreciate it though, because it gave me a sense of accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me hold myself accountable for my own art and my own creation. And I remember going to Japan the first time fighting Kauno, and my main partner, he's actually a coach at Fusion now. I used to call him Gretzky, but he was a hockey player. That's why I called him Gretzky.
Oh,
and he was
that
my
makes sense.
main sparring partner. Yeah, he was my main sparring partner. And but prior to that, man, I had to like teach all my sparring partners how to fight so that I had training partners. So like that was my whole career, man, teaching guys how to fight. So I had training partners.
You bring up a good point. Like, I always had a body because I always just call one of my fighters, like, hey, I need to get some wrestling in. Where you at? One of them would show up.
Well, the guy, my man's name was Mike Scroy. So I should have said that earlier, but Mike Scroy, he's one of the coaches at Fusion now in Orlando. But yeah, man, actually when I joined Top Team, it was like awkward for me to have people running practice and all that, because I was so used to doing it myself and just being able to get there myself. And I don't know if it was better for me or not. I don't know. I can't put a finger on it now, but
well, I mean, I know you've heard this before. If you want to learn something, teach it. And I feel like that's an advantage that coaches have. And
yeah,
yeah, That's an advantage the coaches have, and that's what I had. And I used to like, okay, we're working on this week. We're going to do this, and actually, I do that a lot now with the nogi class that I teach. Actually, tomorrow I got to go fix something I taught last week because I realized what I was doing wrong.
Wait, listen, but that is the sign of a good coach, to
Mhm.
recognize that you did something wrong or that something could be better and go back and correct it. Some people would just be like, well, I'm embarrassed to say that I did something wrong and I'm charging these people money, so let's just move on, you know. No,
Yeah.
but you gotta fix things that you feel like are done wrong, or
Mhm.
make them better.
Yeah.
You know,
And just say I
so
fucked up and go forward.
and talking about like not knowing everything. So they asked me today on one of my shows about the guillotine, however you want to say it, that Sean Brady hit Leon with, and like how he does that. And I said, I don't know. Like, I don't know how he's able to get on top of these guys from that half guard position, wrap his arm around their neck, and do it with one arm without getting bucked off, without even having them like be able to create space on the lower half to disrupt his balance. Like, I don't know how he's able to do it.
So I'm not going to pretend that I do know, but being I have a similar body type than he does, I I I know what I do in those situations. First, um, the guard, so to speak, is a little bit higher. I wouldn't like he's not around the long torso of Leon. If you go back, like he had one leg across the chest, so he's kind of pinning the body down a little bit,
Mhm.
even though he's kind of in a half guard. But on top of that, now I don't know what grip I'm going to say. I don't know, but the grip was a little different, or would be a little different. You know, like me, you know what I rely on my guillotine. I want to make sure the cap of your head, my bald spot, the cap of your head, right, my armpit. So when you try to pick up, you're actually going into the choke.
Right.
And I think it's probably something with the grip and the leg placement. But
Well,
I just
I
know that's my
said
brain.
definitely the grip. The grip is all, and that's why I had a bad guillotine my entire career.
Mhm.
I never had anybody teach me the grip or a
Mhm.
good grip. I've never had that. It was always squeeze harder, right? And I never had a
Yeah.
good enough grip. And I said that obviously he's doing something with the grip because he's actually doing. I don't know if he had his hands locked against Leon, but I know it's the same thing he did against Boogie Martinez, and he did that actually with one arm.
Yeah. He almost got it
So
with one arm in this fight.
yeah, almost. He probably would have if he just stuck with it. Instead, he just grabbed his hand. I guess he did grab his hand, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, man. Like that's not in my wheelhouse in terms of what I'm capable of doing or what I'm capable of teaching. But
Mhm.
because I know Sean can do that, if the situation came that I needed to teach somebody that, I would call Sean and be like,
Mhm.
Sean, show me that damn guillotine so I can show this guy so he can have some better options from top half guard.
That goes back to what we were saying before we were rolling, talking about like coaches learning and stuff like that. You know how many times I've seen coaches because they don't understand something and a fighter's pulling it off, say stop doing that because it doesn't stick within their cookie cutter curriculum, and it's like, oof. Like if you don't understand something, see, ask the fighters do it and see how you could reinforce enforce it, you know, or like you said, call somebody in that might have some success with it. Don't take away weapons from a fighter just because he doesn't fit your cookie cutter system.
Well, there's a lot of red flags to that type of mentality, and they normally start with, "Oh, he's just really strong."
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? They know because whenever you ask somebody, especially when they look strong, whenever you ask that person, they'll tell you like a very specific thing that they do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's funny. It's
Mhm.
funny how that works. And I like people that look strong. They're like, I try not to use strength. I just try to just do my thing. But other people, when they see him, they go, "Oh, he's able to do it because he's just strong." But that person can tell you something very specific that they're doing that's actually different from what most people do. So normally, for me, that's the red flag when people just assume that somebody's good just because they're strong, and I go, they're doing something different. And I remember like Lloyd Irvin talking about that with years and years and years ago when Hodger Gracie was mounting people and hitting them with a damn collar choke, a front choke from like he was just doing something different from what everybody else was doing. It wasn't that he was strong, he just knew a better setup and his gripping mechanisms were better than everybody else's. And he knew it and no one else knew it. So that's why he was doing it and no one else was doing it. So Interesting stuff, Ryan. But I do want to flip the page to a more controversial, maybe perhaps even somber note.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah.
that's what this shows up. We're gonna keep it real. So the judgment was placed on Cain Velasquez today. He got sentenced to 5 years. Some of that he will get time served, so he'll end up doing about, according to some people, maybe just a little over a year.
Mhm.
I have my damn thoughts on this, but I would like to hear your thoughts before I shut them down.
Yeah. So yeah, and you might shoot a couple of one because I'm going against the grain on a little bit of it.
Okay.
So I had to be refreshed through the whole thing. It was a while ago, so he did have some time served. But um, he did injure a bystander, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So to me, if he just hit the target, like, I'd be like, you know what? But he, but, but he did injure a bystander, and when that happens, you can't like something needs to be dealt with. Like if I was shot in target by two guys that busted out, I'd even though the other guy, like I don't know, I would want to think that something's going to happen, but he did have time served, so I think that this is where like I would if I well I'm not I don't have the education or anything, but if I were the judge, I think he had like 2 years in there, right?
Yeah, he did. I think he did like 2 years
Yeah.
and
Okay.
18 months or something like that. He did some time,
Okay.
and then probation and so on.
And on top of it, he was protecting his family. And then this is what we're gonna go back to. I'll let you talk in a minute. And that guy, from what I understand, he's like over with probation and he's out. He's doing nothing. He's doing his own thing now, from what I just read. So clearly, there needs to be some shakeup here. I don't think that justice was completely served.
I don't know, man. So I've been reading up on this today, and I don't know.
Uh,
It's hard. So if I'm completely wrong on my facts, I'm sure that people will let me know.
Yeah, I'm sure
But
that I'm off a little bit too.
yeah, so here's what I get. Um, this whole thing about him protecting his family, it wasn't like he caught the guy in the act and ran him down. This guy got arrested a week before for doing it. Was on his way to see his probation officer to get like his ankle bracelet, and that's when he chased him down.
Yeah,
Wasn't
premeditated.
exactly protecting his family. Like he premeditated this attack,
Mhm.
right? And you're right. Like if he choked this guy out and killed him, I'd have been like, I get it. But the fact that he chased him for 11 miles in a high-speed chase, was shooting at him, then T-boned the truck and shot at them and hit the guy's father. The guy no longer has the use of his arm anymore because of nerve damage in that arm. I was like,
Yeah, that's a lot.
and everybody's like, Cain shouldn't get no time. And I don't want to come across as insensitive to Cain, because I understand, like, in a passion of rage, I understand it, man. I understand what he was probably thinking, hearing what happened to his son. I understand that. That's why I think, man, just beat the shit out of the guy. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
But the fact that, and everybody's like, he shouldn't get no time. But imagine like a book at Ricochet that he was like shooting in public, and it hit your mother.
Yeah.
Would you still think the same thing about he shouldn't serve no time just because of what happened to his son? That's my point, is like what he did was completely reckless and wrong.
Mhm.
And I'm not mad. And I'm actually more mad at the MMA community. I'm not mad at Cain. I'm like, yo, I feel sorry for him. I'm actually mad at the MMA community for being like, oh man, Cain deserves to go free Cain. And I'm just like, yo, he could have really killed. He could have killed somebody else other than the guy he was intended to target. Now, here's where it gets really tricky, because I was reading up on this. All right.
Mhm.
The guy was only arrested for the crime. Now, when they first arrested him, so the guy's mother owned the daycare. The guy's mother owned the daycare,
Mhm.
which they've been open for 40 years. Never had a complaint, nothing. In fact, people in the town loved him. I was reading this.
Wow.
The guy, so yes. So the guy got arrested. The cops said, or actually, I think there was like an investigation on it at first. And They have video camera that the guy wasn't even there the day that he was accused of doing the crime. They have it on video that he wasn't even there. Now, that doesn't mean that he wasn't there, but he also had an alibi, a credible alibi. Then the cops were supposed to investigate that before arresting him, and they didn't, and they just picked him up and arrested him anyway.
So I thought it was proven that he did it. It was never
No,
fully
it's
proven that he did it.
he's his court date is June 2nd.
Oh wow! See, I should have read more.
This is what I'm saying. Like, he hasn't been convicted of the crime. His court date is June, and the family is like, we can't wait to go to court to prove that he's innocent.
Wow.
That's why, and I mean, I could be completely off base here, but this is what this is what I read from from one of the newspapers, and this was a total, because like all the facts we're kind of getting is kind of biased from an MMA perspective, because Cain is our guy. Like, Cain is our guy.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Greatest heavyweight ever. So he's our guy. So we jumped the gun on our judgment with this. But from what I'm reading from like an independent source, I read an independent source, and it was like the guy hasn't even been proven guilty yet.
Yeah, I didn't know. I'm so used to those situations where there's usually more than a singular time, and I guess just I didn't even know that I thought he did it. I thought that it was a done deal. And
that's what I'm saying. That hasn't been proven yet. Like, if he did it, listen, throw the book at this motherfucker, cut his head off.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Lock him in the room with Cain. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If he did it, lock him in the room with Cain. But they haven't proven that yet. He hasn't gone to court for that yet. Wow. And that's where it gets tricky to me, is that we've all jumped the gun on this family and this guy because Cain is our man. So we kind of had this lynch mob mentality towards it. And it's been very unfair to that family, because that family, they've been in business in that town for 40 years. And they had to shut down because they were getting death threats and so on and so forth because of this whole thing. Yeah, it's kind of sad, man. It's almost like as I'm like, when I first heard the whole thing, I'm like, yo, my man Cain. But as I'm reading more and more about it, I'm like, damn, man, this is actually this is worse than I thought. This is like a really sad movie where the victims aren't really getting or not being heard here.
Yeah, man. And you're really good with doing your digging and your due diligence, your Dean diligence.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to the story then that I got to see, and I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, it's a lot more to it. And the worst part about this whole story is that at the end, like, if this guy did it, then that means Cain's son got molested.
Yeah.
And that's a hard pill to swallow. And if he didn't do it, then Cain went on this rampage and shot an innocent man for no reason. And we all showed our colors in terms of supporting a dude who did something unjustly.
Yeah, well, show our colors. I mean, it's not like we knew that he was that. Like, yeah, I mean, we supported our man, but I think it was that. I think it was we were supporting our tribe. I don't think it's not like we knew he was breaking the law. You know, no, we knew he was breaking the law, but I mean, like, it wasn't like, oh, fuck yeah, he robbed that store. He was hungry. Like, I don't know. Like,
well, no, I think that's the easiest way to accept it, is the fact that just hearing about the situation with the 4-year-old, we all put ourselves in his position, right? We all put ourselves in a position like, and we all kind of admired what he did, because we all say we would do that, or at least think we would do that. Like, we would be the hero in the story, but I'm gonna get this motherfucker, let's go get him. And I think that we all kind of had a sense of admiration for him actually doing that, and like you said, protecting his family. Like, we saw that as protecting his family.
Well, I hope that people listen to this conversation, because I'm glad I went first, because I didn't know all the facts, and I gave my raw opinion, and then you showed what you went into, because like by protecting his family, like you said, it wasn't like the kid just came home and Cain went out. you know, it was clearly premeditated, and we didn't catch him in the act, like you said. Like, there's a lot more to it than I originally thought.
But I think the good news is for Cain is that the judge was very lenient.
Mm-hmm.
The judge kind of understood what was going on, and apparently, I was listening to Jimmy Smith talking to his attorney Patrick Donahue, and he said that when the judge was sentencing Cain, he was crying and said that the worst sentence you can give a man is to take him away from his son, and which is why I think he gave him because the state was trying to give him 25 years, and he could have been looking at that. So the judge gave him 5, which again was served, and I think the judge did the humane thing.
Yeah.
And said, you know what, we understand that this was a crime of passion and it was a one-off. Like, Cain's not a bad dude. So this was just one of them situations where, man, you were just in a rage and seeing red, and we all could imagine being there, and you did something stupid. So, but you got to pay some type of price.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause you know, what'll happen is eventually people will go out in their vigilante mode and they'll just claim that somebody was hurt in their family or something.
Right. For sure.
Has to be done.
For sure. Like that, we got to draw the line somewhere and got to set a precedent somehow. And, I'm interested to seeing how this story actually turns out, man. I'm committed to it now. I'm like,
you want to do a watch along for the court case?
Real talk, man. I'm hoping they make a movie about it, but I'm really interested in seeing how this turns out. And for those watching and listening, if I'm off base about something, you don't got to call me an idiot, and
I'll call him.
Trying to learn
these what happened.
Everybody else. So if there is something that I'm off base about, just tell me what I'm off base about and cite your source so I can look it up myself. But yeah, you don't have to be disrespectful. Anything else? I'm going to Mexico this week, man. Anything else?
No, man, it's going to be a good card. Looking forward to it. We talked about a lot. I love the fight nights. I really do. We talk about it all the time, especially when they go to different cities, different, there's just a cool feel about them. Like, I'm looking forward to UFC Mexico.
Well, I tell you one thing, boy. That London card, other than Brady winning and Lonnie Kavanaugh,
dude,
oh, man.
Listen,
was it as bad on TV as it was?
You know what? If I get it. This is Monday morning quarterback, but if they put Josh Emmett, Lerone Murphy in the co-main event, saves the card. But they needed that. That's a main event elsewhere.
I couldn't even tell you who the co-main was in this fight. Who was the co-main? Was it Kevin Holland?
Yeah, was it Kevin and
Kevin and Gunnar Nelson? That was kind of a fun-looking fight, but Gunnar looked so bad.
That that was the other thing, is there was a lot of lackluster performance on the card. It wasn't even like, listen, if you're doing 50 fights a year, you're gonna get a dud here and there.
Yeah, but all in one night, Jesus.
And the Molly fight, and it was forgettable with the exception of Sean.
It's bittersweet because they broke all the records. The energy in the beginning was really good, but just as the night progressed, I don't know if I set my expectation too high, being London and what I'm used to seeing over there from those fighters, but man, it just didn't. It wasn't the spark that I was expecting. I'm hoping Mexico can do it though.
I feel like the tent poles, the London cards, even as good as I love Lerone Murphy, as good as he is, he's one of my favorite fighters in UFC. The tent poles were always Molly and Patty. Patty, you got to move around now. You got to put him on bigger cards. And Molly's been losing, so her stock has kind of dropped. So it's hard to build a card elsewhere. I mean, it's hard to build a card around anything else. And there wasn't really anyone that had a performance. Like, they didn't have anyone that's like on the rise either. That was, like Kevin Holland. He is what he is, even though he's a name. Who else was there?
I will say this, but the fact that you can't remember him is a testament of just a lack of. He just doesn't have enough experience yet. But this Lonnie Kavanaugh kid is going to be really good.
I didn't
I see a bright
catch.
future for him. He's
I
half
think
Chinese, half English.
okay. I didn't know. I had a couple of good motion. There's a couple of good things on the card, like things that happened in fights that I liked. I forgot what it was now. They're on my Twitter, my X, if anyone wants to go back and look.
Yeah, but watch this Lonnie Kavanaugh kid. Well, he might be Irish with the last name Kavanaugh, but he's half Chinese, just extremely athletic, extremely good, and trains with Brad Pickett and those guys.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's got a bright future ahead of him. But Ryan, it has been real. It is always real with you. We will do it again next week. I hope you have a good rest of your week.
You too. Have a great trip, and we'll do it again next week.
All right. So if you enjoyed the show, hit like, share, subscribe, comment, and also if I said something off base, just let me know. You know what I'm saying? I'll fix it. No big deal. But on that note, this court is adjourned. We out.